quite an 18 months or so since I was with you all, and who would know we were still kind of in the throes of the pandemic. So, although coming out of it, right? Optimistic?
Whatever.
Oh, whatever. Okay. Whatever. So, just I think for the folks at home, we have a PowerPoint, just a brief PowerPoint presentation that's being shown to them. I know it's been emailed to you guys just fairly recently here too. So, but I thought it would just be good to review where we were and what we're doing tonight, and then kind of what we're planning to do going forward. So, so first of all, I would just like to talk to you a little bit about kind of what is a strategic plan, remind you what a strategic plan is. And so it is, we start out with a vision. And so your vision is an aspirational statement about, kind of the ultimate Baldwin city. That's followed then by key performance areas. So key performance areas are those broad categories of things in which you need to have success to achieve your vision. And you all have developed 3 key performance areas, and within each of those you prioritized a series of goals. So your vision statement is Baldwin City, the safe, affordable, vibrant, attractive community, interactive community with opportunity for all. And if you remember your conversation at the time, you didn't just want to be kind of just one of many cities, whether in Kansas, so you wanted to be the city. And so the descriptors here really, I think, speak to the fact that you want to make sure that you have, when you say, as I recall the conversation, when you said opportunities for all, it meant from every standpoint. I mean, whether it was education, whether it was business, whether it was, recreation, working with the school district, all those kinds of things. So I don't know if you guys want to reflect at all on the vision statement creation, if there was something that you recall in particular that I don't, that maybe you want to comment on. Okay.
I liked it.
Okay. That was. They're sometimes a little painful, but generally, folks come around to it. So then from there, you identified your strategic priorities, and within those, as I mentioned, there were 3 key performance areas that were identified, and so those were economic development, infrastructure, and municipal operations. And within those, you felt that those were the 3 really kind of areas of significance that you need to do some work in to achieve your goals. You'll see then here listed on the slide then the top priorities that kind of rose to the top. And again, these are things that were not meant to be accomplished within a day or 2 or a month. Many of them are multi-year. And so when we start talking about here in just a few minutes about what's been achieved, I think it's important to remember that even though maybe ultimately something hasn't been achieved, there's likely been progress made in going in that direction. But that process, let's talk about community engagement, kind of why are we here now? That process really was kind of just something that was done among the governing body itself. And so if you recall, I had conversations with each of you, and then we had a workshop that was delayed by a few months, but a workshop in which you all came together. But at the time, you said, we really want to look at, what does the community want? Why do we want to, how can we get the community involved? And so that's where we are today. And so tonight, we kind of kick off that process, and I'll be asking you to reflect on the successes that have been achieved in each of these categories, what you want to achieve in the next 2 to 5 years, and then what you would like to know from the community. We'll come back then on October 28th, and we'll be having a community conversation is what I like to call it. And so we'd like everybody to turn out, but I'll be working with Lynn and Glenn on how to get the word out. I don't know that we have a location yet for that interactive opportunity, but I anticipate it'll start about 6 o'clock. It might take until 9 o'clock, but it will be done small group tables, lots of discussions. We're using a technology so that we can develop themes and have polling, and so everybody can see it in real time. We'll then use the results of, and I can't tell you exactly what the questions are going to be because I don't know yet. It's kind of based upon what we know what we do here tonight. And we'll use then the results from that meeting to kind of more refine what we're hearing from the community and come back and again and ask them, kind of touch base with them on November 9th, I believe it is, November 9th. Then you will have all that information at the ready to come back in early December and kind of refine maybe your key performance areas and your goals. So that's kind of the process. So happy to answer any questions that anybody has about kind of how we got here and what we're doing now.
So what's the plan to develop the actual engagement, conversation? I mean, that's really where all the heavy lifting is, right?
Absolutely, yeah. On our team is somebody I've worked with. He's actually out of California, and his name is Todd Erickson with Collaboration Arts. And he uses a platform that's called CoVision. And so based upon the conversation tonight, I have a meeting actually set up already with Glenn and Lynn for next Tuesday with Todd from California. And so we'll be going through and, okay, what are exactly the objectives for that evening? What do we want to be asking the residents and business owners? And then also we need to make it clear to them how that information is going to be used and what they can expect to see at the next meeting as well. It will be incumbent upon you all as a city and Lynn hopefully to really help drive getting folks to the meeting. We had in Raymore, Missouri, of course it's on the Missouri side, a town of about 11,000, and about 2 years ago we had about 150 people there. So, I mean, if you guys got 150, that would be great. If you got 100, that would be great. But I mean, I think it will be a very interactive discussion.
Will there be multiple dates or just one?
So there's October 28th, and then we'll come back on November 9th. So there's two.
And do another community engagement.
Correct. They will be different. They will be different interactions. But just because if somebody wasn't able to make it to the 28th, it doesn't mean that they can't come to November 9th. Okay, so it's not meant to be exclusive, it's meant to be inclusive. So as a matter of fact, if somebody can't make it to the 28th and they hear how great it was and want to be at the November 9th, all the better.
Do we participate in this conversation or do we step back and let the community do?
So it's really it's really up to you. I generally recommend that kind of the governing body steps back and lets the conversation happen among the residents. Certainly to be there is important and to hear that conversation and maybe walk around to the tables and listen to what's happening. But I recommend that generally you're there as a presence and a resource maybe, but not an active participant.
Is it just kind of open-ended, or is it sort of like a focus group model where there's certain questions being asked in groups?
There's very specific questions that are being asked.
Okay,
right?
that we're going to develop tonight.
Right. There are very. I won't have them developed tonight. Okay. But there are very specific questions that will be asked, and there are likely will also. So what happens is the question is asked. Everybody is at a table. They're at individual tables. There are table facilitators, and not just somebody who shows up, but it'll be our team and it'll be staff. We'll need staff to be there as well, who will facilitate the conversations, input the information in a computer. That information then goes to what we call, still in the same room, it's not like some black box, what we call a theme, like a theme team, okay? So what are the themes that are coming out? What are you really hearing? And then likely there will be some prioritization on, okay, what are most important within those themes? And so we'll probably start bigger picture, right? And then get narrower the second meeting. So, and usually in that 3 hour time frame, we also make sure there's time to, we've got to set the stage. We've got to, a lot of times we want to make sure that there's, in setting up the stage, there's an opportunity for the city to say, hey, here's some things that we've done, and then there's usually time for about 3 questions, maybe 4, so 3 or 4 rounds of questions. And then we really encourage people to come back.
Is there any way we could, I think to your point where you're going, to allow people to provide input at another point other than that meeting? In other words, digitally, just send in information around those same questions. I mean, what we're interested in getting the most input we possibly can. Right. We pick one date and one time, you're limiting yourself immediately, which I understand why you would do that. So can we think about how we maybe broadcast it out after the event to more people to get more data in?
So first of all, I think broadcasting it out to get more people to come to the second meeting is a great idea. So they're two distinct meetings, okay? I guess is what I would say. I would also tell you that there is value in sitting with your neighbors, the people you go to church with, the people that you work with, and you're not, and the discussion is really important. So there are certainly other methods, but at this point, that's not something that we plan to do.
Guess we could maybe judge the need for that based on participation at the event. You know, I mean, I just would like to get as much input as I possibly can. If that's written, great. So I'm just trying to think how that might work.
Does this work better than having focus groups? Like a focus group with seniors and a focus group with, younger people or people that are.
Well, what you find is that just because maybe I'm a senior citizen doesn't mean that I'm not interested in what's available for youth, or by the same token that you might, we encourage youth to come as well, whether it's, high school kids or maybe get some folks, from Baker as well, that they're going to have great ideas for the community. And so that kind of cross-pollination is really powerful. I think you might be familiar that I've done some work in Baldwin City with focus groups, I did some work with the Rec Commission, and those were great. The information that was gleaned from those focus groups then were used in a survey that was done on behalf of the Rec Commission. So, and that's how they gathered their information.
I guess I'm going to trust you. You know this way better than I do. So I just want to, like Scott said, I just want to make sure that we're, if you're gone on the 28th, and let's say you're gone for a 2-week vacation, but you didn't miss out on all of it, that maybe there may be another option.
Well, I think we just need to figure out as a body how we want to share what's going on real time on the website. And people can come in at that point and make comments and provide input about these meetings.
Yeah. It's on us.
I don't know.
So-
Do you think that's going to alter the results of what you're trying to do if we have alternative outside input coming in at the same time?
You mean in real time at the same time, like having an online, because you can, and so I just don't, I need to think about that. You could have a virtual opportunity at the same time as you're having an in-person opportunity. That's not something we've planned for, and so it would take more resources and in terms of people and everything else, and so I just kind of need to think about that.
I think that'd be good. Just with COVID and everything, we still have folks that are, not comfortable with going around other, in groups or whatever, yeah.
Because we had talked about whether you wanted to do this, just virtually. Yeah.
You might just end up with one specific crowd who doesn't mind being out and about,
We want to include everybody.
Right, exactly. Right.
The flip side is.
You see, I didn't expect this.
The flip side is you can do it all virtually, but
I don't like that either. I like the two.
Have both options.
Yeah, both
yeah.
options.
That way it's all inclusive.
Right.
Yeah. It's like Casey said, there are a lot of people in our community who just don't feel comfortable going in big crowds.
okay, so we hadn't planned on that, so I need to work with Glenn and see how we can land on that.
So I know you've put forward, a proposal of what you're willing to do, and obviously we want to stick to that. But I'm trying to figure out, is there things we can do on our own with what you're developing here that will augment that? Focus groups, take what we learn and go to focus groups and get some feedback in a different way. So just brainstorming here.
So, more community engagement is always better, so I guess I'm not going to say, right? That's always better. And so certainly there are processes that I have done that have had focus groups and surveys and community meetings, you know?
Right.
And so I'm not trying to imply that they don't have value. It's just a matter of the time that we have right now and the scope, so.
We contracted you to a certain scope, and we're kind of stretching you right now, and I understand that. But I think we just want to explore, either expanding the scope, if there's things you could do, maybe to some of the things we're talking about, or things we could do on our own.
Okay.
With the information that, we're going to get. And maybe it is a survey focus group after we get through this to kind of get the final, here's what it looks like after these 2 meetings, any input on what we're seeing, because this is what, the government body is going to take as kind of the community impact. And then people have.
Well, and if you did a survey, I would ask whether or not they had participated in that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, in the meetings. Well, maybe when we meet on Tuesday, Glenn, I think that's right?
I think it's
Is it a week
Tuesday, yeah.
from today? I think
Yep.
that's right.
You're right.
We can talk a little bit more about that and kind of brainstorm about what that might look like. And then if we come up with some ideas, kind of, you can present those to you guys.
Right.
And
I just think something for peace of mind for me at least is, you've done a few of these. How often do you host these things and it's just crickets and nobody shows up? That's what I'm afraid of.
It's the worst, isn't it? I know. I will tell you, it is so incumbent upon the most successful, and we had a series of them in this one community, and we had the first meeting we had like nearly 300, and there were fewer at each meeting, but there was still like 100 at the,
Good
you
chunk,
know.
yeah.
And I will tell you that city put a lot of resources behind getting people to come, and so. And regardless of whether it's an in-person meeting, whether it's a virtual meeting, whether it's that's the problem, is how do you get people there? And I have been at public meetings where.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like the same people will come every time.
Right.
Right.
No matter what you're talking about.
Right.
Or what you're trying to do.
Mhm.
So we need to reach more people than just the
Absolutely.
regulars.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we also have the task of deciding how much of a campaign we want to throw at getting people out to this event. Both of them, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we can control.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
a little bit there.
We
What
just
do
might
we-
have to expand the time.
what are we going to get in front of them ahead of time so they know what it's about, what the topics are? Are we going to share what we've got so far?
Well, that's like, so it's not till October 28th. As I said, we've got this meeting on Tuesday. The plan was to okay, what does that agenda look like? What's the messaging that we want? How do we get people to come? And so we're not waiting until the 27th.
Right.
Well, I just think people need to know what we're gonna be asking for.
Sure, yes, absolutely.
Because, if I get information, I have to think about it for a while before I'm gonna really tell you what I think about it.
Mhm.
So I think they need to know ahead of time what questions we're gonna ask or what kind of information we want from them.
They will. Absolutely.
So, I would favor sharing, the key performance areas. Hey, are we missing something? These are what we believe, or, somebody can say, well, what about this, or where does it fit? Here's a vision we've come up with, looking for feedback on that.
Can I interrupt you? And it's because I love where you're going.
Maybe not.
Because I think it fits into one of the questions I'm gonna ask later, but okay, go
Gotta
ahead.
let it finish. The caveat might come at the end.
Yeah.
Finish your thought.
No, because that's one of the last question I'm gonna be asking you is what do you really wanna know from the community on the 28th? So, what don't we wanna know? Yeah, we wanna know everything. But so have we hit the,
Yeah, so to answer that question, where I was going is, we had an initial meeting where we developed a vision, we developed some key performance areas, we developed a pretty big list of potential projects
Right.
in those development areas. That's kind of where we're at. And we've done some of them, we can kind of share the progress we've made on some of those, but the question is, are we missing anything? Or do you agree with these key performance areas? Here are the things we thought of. Are we missing anything? Where would you prioritize?
yeah, and that's it, yes.
And that's
Yes.
what I'm interested in, is what are we missing, and is our prioritization the same as yours?
Yes.
Right, because I think the things that we listed as most important aren't necessarily most important to me anymore.
Exactly.
So
And
we need to get together and talk more
Well,
about
so I
what
think
we're wanting.
what we'll have is the community feedback, and then,
But we don't even know what we want. That's
Right.
what I'm saying.
but in the end, you can use that feedback with what your personal view is and come up with a governing body decision.
And that might come out as we reflect on these
Right.
points. So if there's something, I already see a few that we've already kind of come together and decided that's gonna be $25 million. Maybe we don't need to do it all at once. Maybe that comes out as you ask us, is that what we're doing tonight, that we're gonna go through these and reflect? And
So I'm going to be asking you where, what progress has been made in achieving those areas. What would you like to see happen in the next 2 to 5 years? Yeah, for each of them. And not each specific goal, but looking broader at the more key performance areas.
Right.
Because the other thing is, while economic development has 3 priorities in it, and maybe you've made some progress, maybe not, but maybe you've done some other things that you'd like to call out.
I think then that opens the opportunity for getting that out there.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more goals in the economic development area. We've listed 3. I'm not sure where we came up with these 3. Maybe it was a priority rank that we did.
Yeah, it was.
And to Julie's point, that may have changed.
Yeah,
So I don't want to limit it to 18 months ago or whenever we met. To that, I would like to limit to here's all the things we thought of.
well, not just here's the things we thought of, what do you think of?
That's my point.
Right.
But you give them a
Right.
starting point.
Right.
And say, what are we missing? And where does that rank for you with all these other things? And probably it goes to the top if it's something that's not on there that they're passionate about.
Mhm.
But that's what I'd be interested in, is those things we haven't thought of.
Right.
And, maybe we'll get a clear message of there's something the community really thinks is important
Exactly.
that we didn't back then.
Absolutely.
Or we may still not. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm interested in getting out of it.
I really feel like I'm on the same page with y'all, and that this process will get you what you want. And it will, if we can get folks there,
Right.
it will be interactive, they will be excited. And they'll want to come back to the second one and tell their friends. So I'm really confident in that, so.
So what's the harm in putting what we developed in the final session on the website and just say, here's the working information we have?
I'm not saying that there's any harm in it,
I'm asking you,
but
what would be the downside of doing that?
Or is there a downside?
so first of all, putting out the information is great. I think it's, what are you asking them and how are you going to use it? Those are the 2 questions. What are you asking and how's it going to be?
I wouldn't be asking anything, but I just present the data. Saying, here's the information. I'm not asking for anything. What we're
Okay.
asking for is input at these events or
Okay.
some other way.
Oh, well, yeah, there's no harm in putting it
Okay.
out there.
Because then I think people get educated on, I really need to show up because my priority's not on there, right?
Mhm.
I want to go make sure it gets on there. Maybe if they agree
Or
with
try
it.
to make the case that.
Or make the case,
Yeah.
at least make sure it's
Yeah.
recorded that
Right.
someone believes this is,
Right.
needs to be a priority, so.
And that's another great point. You said that make sure that's recorded. So everything that comes out of these meetings, it's in the report. So everybody's suggestion is in the report. Okay, it doesn't mean that it rises to any level of discussion, but it's right there. So
I think to your point, is there any, do we make any guidelines around costs, or we just leave it wide open and worry about that after we see what's important, right? So $25 million thing, people may not know that, but it may be important, and that may be part of the education process of, if that's the most important, do we forego everything else for the next 5 years to go do that? What would you suggest on, any limits on?
well, I think there's a balance between giving information. So if you have a $25 million project and you say, okay, we understand this is important to the community, here's the reality in terms of how it might be accomplished. If you want us to do that, then we'll come up with a plan. And then the community has to put their money where their mouth
After this is
really.
developed.
Right, after this is developed, right, yeah. Yeah, because I think if you limit it, especially if you're like, if you're trying to better your community and you limit it, then you don't know what you're aspiring to. Okay. Can I go over here and start writing down a few things with you guys? Or you got any more questions? You get one more.
He'll reserve it.
Yeah, right. No, you know I'm
I'll wait
kidding.
till,
Yeah, you know I'm kidding. Anything else right now?
No, I appreciate you.
I have one thing.
Okay.
Just, it's real quick one.
It's real quick for me, it's gonna be quick.
So the fellow out in California that uses the proprietary, I guess, is it like software?
It's called CoVision.
COVID.
I mean, he uses, other people use it too.
Okay,
but
so I mean, does that kind of restrict some of the methodology here as far as whether or not that program is effective at measuring what we get?
no, I don't think so.
Okay, I just want to know if we
Yeah.
were restricted by methodology, like
No.
we can't, okay, that's all.
No,
Done.
no, yep, no, I wouldn't say so. And also like in terms of like, I've done it virtually with the same, so it can work both ways.
Okay, cool,
So, yeah.
awesome.
Any other things right now? Of course, I'll take more questions, but. Okay, sorry, I didn't know where to sit. So for each of this, so you guys have this in your memo, and so I'm gonna be asking the same 2 questions within each of the 3 key performance areas. First of all, where have we had success in each of those areas? And so even though, like I said, economic development, you had 3 specific priorities. Develop a tourism plan to increase tourism opportunities, complete the community center, and establish a task force to evaluate incentives. So those are the 3 specific things. So certainly you can comment on those where you've had success. But again, if there's other economic development successes that you've had, let's talk about those too. So, okay? So let's start with that. Okay.
I feel that we've made pretty good progress with the plan for tourism. I don't know if it'll ever be a bound plan that you open and read, but I think with the application to Main Street,
Okay.
working along with the city, I see that really with both of them as the home for tourism.
Okay.
There are committees being formed right now that focus on the promotion of Baldwin City, not just for tourism purposes, but for our own
Right.
purposes within the city. But so far, I think that, to me, a lot of progress has been made in that area with that program. And I feel that it's going to continue.
Other successes in economic development.
For tourism?
Any of them, toward any of the topics within the economic development key performance area.
Well, I mean, we are establishing, I don't know if you call it a task force or a working group or whatever with the school district on the incentives and for developers for residential and commercial growth with the RHID program.
And sorry, Mayor, on the which program?
RHID.
Okay. So it's within that, it's a little bit more narrow than every incentive possible, but it's within that, certainly that category.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Then on the community center, it's kind of at a standstill, but it came to a roadblock when it came to getting it on a ballot for a sales tax increase.
Okay.
But we are starting to secure some private funding, so there's been a great deal of planning
Right.
around the design of the building and talking to the community.
So private funding and continued planning. Okay.
This goes along with tourism for me, but our Sullivan Square development
Yeah.
has been pretty incredible this summer. And what I think it's done also is helped spark a lot of partnerships between groups that have always worked well together, but they're getting more opportunities to put on tons of concerts. There's been a play coming up here in a couple weeks, cornhole like twice a week during the summer. It's been used more than I thought it ever would.
There's the 150 plus one.
Right, that's the name, yeah.
Saw that on the new website.
What it's also doing is it's getting visitors from out of town.
Nice.
I know the Lumberyard Arts Center has noted a lot of the people that have come in. They got a grant to put on several concerts with some acts out of town that have drawn in people. The Rec Commission
Right.
has done that. It's provided nonprofit groups for a way to fundraise through selling
Oh, great.
concessions. So it's been a busy summer there.
Great. Congratulations. 'Cause I think that was the last summer when I was with you, that wasn't quite fully developed yet, right? Is that right?
And COVID hit.
COVID, yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
Some other things too.
and some other things. Yeah. Other successes in the economic development area, whether related to your priorities that you had established or not.
I think we survived COVID as far as sales tax revenue goes. I think we sort of learned some things,
Yeah.
maybe not on paper about Baldwin City, but as Glenn puts it, kind of a work from home community.
Right.
People were staying in town. It's, there's some new businesses that have sprung up since you've been here last. Not sure if that's the council's work, but it's a success in our
Yeah,
community
yeah.
either way.
Absolutely.
Well, we secured the funding through COVID to help local businesses,
There you go.
Yeah.
you know.
You did that.
Which is the CARES funding.
Neighborhood revitalization program, the tax rebate program, still going. That's providing
You don't have
incentive.
to write all that down.
Yeah, we know.
You're good.
Out there.
Okay. Yeah.
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 Yeah, we've seen our sales tax continue to grow throughout the recession. We never saw a down month. We always went up.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
There's probably a lot of reasons for that. But we'll take credit for it. Hey, come on.
Absolutely.
We need more buildings, more space. We're
Yeah.
pretty full downtown,
Okay.
really everywhere.
Any other successes? Okay, so what do you want to see happen in the next 2 to 5 years? And it can either be a continuation of, excuse me, let me write this and I'll turn around. So it can either be a continuation of the priorities that you had established, a year and a half ago or so, and or new things. So what would you like to see in the next 2 to 5 years?
Well, I think we're, part of the working group is just have an annexation plan to allow us to be able to grow sufficiently in the next 2 to 5 years.
I think to kind of, I guess, piggyback that a little bit, see some businesses move into town that are, I guess, willing to invest in building their facility for their business. I mean, that's kind of to Brian's point and Scott's point that, we do have some land available. We just we haven't seen that the businesses come in and actually build their facility for their business.
Anything else from the economic development standpoint that you'd like to see happen in the next couple of years, 2 to 5 years?
Well, just about everything goes back to housing. That's what Scott was talking about. Whether it's annexation to bring in new subdivisions or infill or building new apartments, whatever, downtown, and doing those types of things above the businesses or whatever. Almost everything we do as far as retail or even in recruiting industrial workers or whatever it is, all goes back to housing. Because we don't have the housing for people to move here. They're not going to start a business. They're not gonna come here to take a job. They're not gonna, whatever.
Right.
It all goes back. The number one thing we hear all the time is housing. And then the number two will be not enough space for business. We're full up. We don't have any empty storefronts downtown at all. There's no property downtown at all. We have some on the highway, but not downtown. Unless you want to build up on the second floor, there's no ground floor space at all. So we got what we got right now. And that's it.
I do recall from the conversation, it wasn't just establish the task force, but it was really that focus on the residential growth that you guys really
Right.
worked on. And so,
And it goes without saying that we're really, to Glenn's point, we need a diverse growth in housing. So full
Okay.
spectrum of price points. If you're gonna get
yeah,
entry level jobs created, you have to have people that can afford to live here. So it really needs to be a whole diverse spectrum of growth, not just a single type of.
so it's that entry level or
It's the
workforce
full
housing to the next level up to executive to like, okay, now I'm an empty nester, where do I go now? Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of ties in with that workforce comment, the housing comment that we had talked about before, and I don't remember if it was in here, or if it was elsewhere, but about just retaining skilled labor. About how we had a kind of an exodus of skilled labor and how to, and it always comes back to housing, but I know there was a program at the high school, I don't know if there still is, I believe so.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
they're still trying to develop, the labor to work at some of our local places, but if they can't live here, they can't rent or can't buy, they can't find anything.
Right.
It's a tough recruit. I mean, it really is. And there's options other places, so that's where they go. So we lose a lot of our graduates, whether it's Baker or high school or whatever, to other places. A lot of it has to come down to housing, it really does. So yeah, everything we do comes back to that.
And more so if the stay-at-home culture, at least.
I think it'll just accelerate. I really will. I think that'll happen. And we're looking for more retail on the highway. We did get a new Casey's that came in, and we worked for a couple of years to get that to come here, which gives us more options for as gas station, convenience stores, whatever. And I think that's really helped us a lot. So yeah, we need that sort of thing because I do think we're going to see more people working from home. Maybe not all the time, but it'll be part of their experience will be working from home.
Right.
So they're gonna want things in that town that they can just drive to or walk to, ride their bike to, or have it home delivered. That's gonna be their choices. So they won't be driving to Lawrence and Olathe and all these other places. They're gonna want things delivered here. And the more we can do for that, the better off we're gonna be. Because we have we already got the high-speed internet, from multiple vendors, which is really unusual. Really unusual.
Okay, so what else in the next 2 to 5 years?
But we have the community center in this category.
Right.
Or we had it there. I mean, is that one we carry over in the same category? Does it fit? Doesn't really fit in the other two.
It didn't really fit,
Yeah.
You could say it's infrastructure, I mean, you could also say it's infrastructure
Right.
as a
We had
facility.
a fourth category. Didn't we have a quality of life pop up
I
somewhere?
think when we did those sessions, we did.
Yeah.
So,
I'd have to go back and look at
well, we had 3 sessions after you were here. And I can send you what we did.
Yeah.
But
that'd be helpful.
we created another category, quality of life, because we felt things like the community center aren't really economic development, they're more that kind of component.
And the trail, I think we put in.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the
The
trail.
which, I'm sorry,
The trail.
The trail.
trail, okay, yeah.
Is there any harm in having that fourth pillar? You have too many pillars?
Okay.
Probably too many.
Well, 5, I say, is like the limit usually.
Give me a 5. Let's think about this.
Because here's the deal, right? You want this to be a management tool,
Right,
right? I mean,
exactly.
so.
Let's go use it, right?
Yeah. I remember the conversation about the trail. I remember, I'm sorry, what was this, the first one you guys just mentioned before?
The
Oh,
community
quality of life.
Oh,
Yeah, so you put the community center quality of life, yeah. So yeah, if I could get, Len, those updates, that would be helpful. Because I will then incorporate that in what we do with the community.
And if you don't have it, Glenn, I can send it to you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be fine.
But I think the list may have changed slightly as well in some of these, because we pulled some out. Community center, when you call it life, and something else may have popped in the top 3.
And some we learned more about.
Right.
Good,
That
you're using it like you should.
Staff
Yeah.
informed us some
Yeah.
things and
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm thrilled that you're doing that.
Ryan did a good job of driving it to a more refined view, so I want to make sure we use that for the next level here. Community.
I'm gonna, come over here and just make myself a note, so. Okay. Okay, so shall we move on to infrastructure, or what do you think?
I think so.
So infrastructure successes.
Well, we have buried some power lines around town.
That's right, that's like nothing that's gonna happen overnight, right?
No,
But you guys got it going on, so that's good.
and we worked on doing the water, to provide another service for water, but it's not going anywhere, so. Just have to,
Much easier than just putting a line on a piece of paper, huh? I mean, much more difficult than putting a line on a piece of paper.
well, the rural water district that we were dealing with has either, sometimes they'll talk to us and sometimes it won't happen. And it's just going back and forth.
But I think some of these goals will be met or started with the federal funding that we're receiving.
Okay,
We're gonna be
good.
having a work session on here in the near future, so.
Okay, and how much are you getting?
700.
Right now, the first round is a little over 7, about 750, somewhere in
Okay.
that area. But now we have, whatever comes out of Congress.
Right.
Don't know what's coming out as far as infrastructure or whatever, but the latest I saw is they want to move pretty aggressive, especially toward renewable energy.
Right.
So it'll come out
Right.
in whatever form it comes out in. So we'll see what the details look like, but we're of course gonna be very interested in that.
Devil's in the details, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm still hopeful, but it's going to take a while.
I mean, most of these are pretty, these infrastructure priorities are pretty long-term.
The Brick Street one, that's gonna take forever.
Well, evaluating whether to retain them is going to take forever, or have you made some progress in doing the evaluation?
Yeah, I guess you're right, I guess, I guess you gotta decide that first. I thought we all kinda decided we liked it.
Yeah, what you said.
Sorry,
Well, I think-
that wasn't meant to be.
I think we want to retain them, it's just trying to get to that point that we can afford to do it.
So has a decision been made?
No, we haven't really.
We haven't really started down evaluating the options, right?
And we have 28, is it 28 blocks, Glenn?
20 or 30, depending on what,
Either way,
let's use 30.
it's-
It's easy math.
I think like we talked before, I mean, people love their brick streets or they hate their brick streets.
You hate them when they're bad.
Right, yeah, exactly.
When we learned from another city that has done it, basically block by block for the last 20 years, that they raised the sales tax for it, but every summer they do a couple blocks.
Yeah.
And it's taken them that long just to make it this far, so.
So I guess that brings up a question around community feedback. I mean, we can ask them whether the council should prioritize evaluating and retaining the brick streets, or we can ask them whether they would like to retain the brick streets. Two separate questions.
Yes. So we can't ask them questions on each of these priorities. So that's going to be the, I can't.
Well,
So
So my point is, let me phrase it a different way. Are we going to list an objective of just evaluating whether to retain brick streets? That somebody would say, I want you to prioritize that or not?
So I think what I would probably suggest is when we're kind of giving that kind of the framing of it, we say, this is what the governing body is working from at this point. Okay? Now, we're not going to say, so do you want to bury power lines? Do you want to expand solar? Do you want to, But from the conversation then, we will glean where their priorities are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other successes on infrastructure?
Well, the Public Works has improved a lot of their not the facilities,
Good.
but the mechanisms that they work with.
Processes or?
Equipment, I would
Equipment?
say, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be seeing even more with the money coming down the pipe for infrastructure.
When we've made progress on the first leg of the trail for the grant. So hopefully that'll be bid letted here pretty
By
soon.
the end of the year, stay on schedule.
So sidewalks completed and planned and completed the sidewalk plan.
No, we've been approved for the sidewalk, Safe Routes to School plan. We've been approved for all the grant monies to fund all that, but it's gonna be 2 more next year and the year after. before
We've
it's-
made
But
progress.
is that different than the first leg of the trail? Is it
Yeah,
sidewalks-
there's 2
sidewalks,
different,
Yeah.
Right.
Safe routes to school?
Yep.
You've finished the second phase?
No,
We finished
Elm
the-
Street was
Elm Street was
safe,
first.
safe routes, but that wasn't really with the trail.
Right.
This-
No, I'm talking about sidewalks again.
First
Yeah.
phase was done, Elm Street.
Right.
Second phase is Railroad, third phase is 11th,
Right.
second.
We completed first phase.
Got the
Completed
first one
first
done.
phase.
Yeah, we're talking about the second phase being bid by the end of the year, which is actually the first leg of the trail also, so
Oh, good.
it's a dual purpose
Yeah.
there. It's safe routes to school and the trail.
Anything else in terms of success on the infrastructure? Okay, looking ahead right now, what would you think you should be focusing on?
A new substation. I heard that snicker.
No, I was agreeing, yeah.
I was ready to get that out right away.
I think if we can do that, that's gonna be pretty much it.
And what do you mean by pretty much it?
Because I think that if we do that, then I don't think there's gonna be much for money for anything else.
Well, but
So this is electrical substation,
Yeah.
right? So it'd be financed out of
Electric
utility
fund.
rates, so I don't know your budget, but it could leave open money for other ways to finance infrastructure.
Yeah,
Understanding that would be a big hit, like a
Yeah.
big expense, yeah.
And again, I don't think we want to talk about necessarily the cost of all this. That's obviously a high priority. If it takes everything, you do it. But once we see the priorities are, then we talk about how we fund it. And is it the only thing we can do, or can we do more? It's kind of the second discussion once you figure out what you want to do. I don't want to get hung up in costs initially. Get derailed.
Well, that would, okay. I would say that's our number one priority. If the city,
So
if the
it is-
city wants to have electricity, I think that's our number one priority.
Appreciate your opinion. I'm not saying I don't share it, but yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of reasons to do it, and utility group has shared what those are. The question always is timing, right?
Yeah, it's past time.
Again,
So we're not here to make these decisions, right?
No, I just don't want-
Okay.
I
So
just
what
say-
so what other things do you think needs to happen in the next 2 to 5 years?
Well, on the electric side, we're also looking at more solar power.
Right,
We already
and
do
so,
that.
yeah, and so that's on the
Okay.
list, right, yeah, so can kind of continue that way.
Yeah, I think that list is still.
The list is still pretty, yeah, it's pretty big, I mean, big stuff there. Okay. So, okay, shall I put continue work on, make it clear that I understand, this is just helping me to get an idea for you guys to kind of prime the pump. Like, decisions aren't being made tonight on any of this, right? You know, so it's just, yeah, okay.
And for me, a goal is going to be in that area, remain competitive from a cost of living or cost of utility, or however you want to phrase it. But I personally like to see, from an infrastructure perspective, that we're competitive from a cost perspective, cost of living, or however you want to phrase that.
So expanding infrastructure, not just brick and mortar kind of stuff, but your finances.
Well, I'm just saying the cost of all that. I mean, we can go do a lot. To your point, you just put in utility rates and you fund it that way. Well, if you become uncompetitive, it's too difficult. You can't live here, then you've got economic development problems.
Affordable for all.
Ooh.
Go back to the mission statement.
Yeah, good point.
Affordability.
Yeah, so affordability, that's probably the best way to say it, is affordability, make sure we're staying in affordability, the realm of affordability for a diverse population, so.
Kind of considering the taxing burden, or public financing burden, kind of.
And cost of utility rate cost. I mean, that's how this community generates a lot of the revenue, is through the utility rates.
Right.
That works.
All wordsmiths on these for that. Anything else for infrastructure? Okay, shall we move on to municipal operations? Okay. Success in municipal operations?
One success I'd say, since you've probably been here, is, we were able to promote within our staffing to fill positions that were people retired. To develop, I guess. And then formalized a command structure in our police department. Chief did. Completed a pay study.
Oh, good. Were you able to implement it or start implementing it?
We'll talk about that on Monday.
Okay. That's the first step. You got to know where you are, right? And then kind of decide where you're going from there. Anything else in municipal operations?
Does the creation of the 2 lieutenant positions?
That's why command
structure.
structure.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
what
what I
I
was
thought.
thinking of.
I don't know if there's anything that you would want to add to this list in terms of success in municipal operations.
Well, I think we saw one of our issues with our water towers recently.
Is that municipal operations rather than infrastructure?
That's an operations issue, actually.
What about turnover? How are we doing there? Would you consider that?
I think we're pretty much stabilized our most of our utility department. We've had some turnover lately, but it's slowed down considerably now.
I'll tell you what, that is something that, turnover in particular is something that a lot of smaller communities are really dealing with. and you find that you hire great folks, right? And you train them and they move on. And so that's something that I hear a lot. So it's great that it's kind of stabilized at this point.
I think our communication with citizens has increased since you've been here last. You noticed the website.
Yeah,
I was just gonna
So-
say website, yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
the new website's great.
I love it.
I've noticed a big difference since when I've started on council with what citizens know.
Oh, good.
They know a lot now, so it's good. We've expanded that.
That's great.
Yeah, I think creating the communication director role is just a huge success, and we've seen it manifest itself in all the different communication streams that are out there, just tremendously different than 3 years ago.
Right.
Any other successes in municipal operations? Or where do you think you should be going internally?
I think the biggest thing for me is to stay competitive with surrounding communities to retain our
Okay.
tenured staff.
Retention and cross-training, we talked about that when you were here last. We still talk about it. I think it's always a big fear, especially when you see how many city jobs are out there right now, wastewater plants and things like that. I mean, it's just, people need labor, we do too, and retaining that's important.
Anything else? Can't remember exactly why we landed on that municipal operations one, because that is, I do recall the staff, I think the staff discussion really kind of drove that, as I recall, that, we're having turnover, wanting to make sure that we had good folks and we're able to keep them, so. Anything else? Okay, let's talk about, and we can certainly add to this if you want, so let's talk about the 28th then, and so,
So before we move on, can we
yes.
real quick just do the quality of life?
Right.
oh, great,
I was got
yeah.
yeah.
Good, because I generated my own from memory. This is perfect.
Yeah.
See how you do stuff.
Great idea,
Test.
yes, let's do, oh, okay. Like, whoops, what about that? Can I take a quick gander at it?
Yeah. Yeah. You can take this over there if you want. So it starts
Okay.
here,
Okay.
community center, sidewalks, library, pool, city lake, and
Oh.
tourism. So some of them
Lot
we
of-
just
yeah.
hit already.
Okay, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for
Okay,
it.
thanks.
Totally.
Of course I. Yeah, well, it's still here, just There it is.
Got it,
yeah.
Protected.
sidewalks, library, pool, city, lake, tourism, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so, quality of life. Again, it was, I lost A though, what's A? Do you remember?
Community center.
Was it center? Okay.
at the top.
Okay, I'll just go ahead. So these were since it's not in the memo, it was community center, sidewalks, library, pool.
City.
Yeah, city, lake, and tourism, that we've already talked about. We've kind of really covered this community center already,
And tourism.
sidewalks a little bit.
But didn't we move tourism to economic development? Probably.
Yeah, and that's where it is.
I think you did,
Right.
yeah.
So,
We had that conversation, like, it's really not for the community, so.
so library, pool, and city, lake. That are kind of the three that we kind of talked about, right? Or no, yeah, okay.
We got it.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay. Quality of life successes. Library, pool, city, lake.
really changed since
No.
then.
When was that done?
Probably about,
Those are sidewalks? January 26, 2021 was the quality of life. Yeah, sidewalks.
I had a few more, I don't know if they were here or just popped in my head, but, green space, sidewalks, obviously we made some progress on sidewalks. Um,
And you made progress on green space?
Not necessarily
Well,
I
it's
think-
Sullivan Square.
finished that,
Yeah.
I don't know if you consider renewing the lease with BGA for that as
that'd be considered a success.
Yeah,
green
protected
space,
green
yeah,
space.
so.
It's pretty good grades.
Renewed the lease with Baldwin Golf Association,
Right.
finished Sullivan Square, sidewalks, phase one completed. Safe school.
I have dog bark on this one here that I
Right.
didn't notice there.
Frog Park?
Well, it's not a
That's
success.
It's not a
Not a
success.
I thought it was clear. Okay.
Save that one for
We
the
did away with the
failures.
dog
Yeah.
park, that was a success.
Okay, so renewed the lease with the Golf Association, Sullivan Square again, the sidewalks, what we've talked about, anything else?
I think came up with a proposed plan for the community center.
Yeah.
What's something that's done?
It's good.
Okay, 2 to 5 years, quality of life.
New pool,
Separate from the separate discussion in the community center?
yes.
Staff advised it may have 5 to 7 years of life. We don't know that for sure, but maybe in the next 2 to 5 to at least move that direction to think about what to do.
Progress on the community center.
Okay, so continue, yeah.
The decision on the
The
lake.
decision on the lake
Yeah.
is what I was about to say.
Long-term plan for the city lake.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's something I'm completely not familiar with. I don't know that I need
So
to-
there's,
Because we just don't.
yeah, there's a city lake, where we used to get our water from, actually, it's spring fed.
Okay,
And so that's why it's city property,
Yeah.
it's 2.5 miles southeast of Baldwin. But
okay,
we still have water lines underneath there that we're actually pumping back toward the city lake down out from. But that's why it's city property, because it used to be a recreation area. The spillway broke, it collapsed in
Oh.
the storm, and so now it's like about 2 feet deep, and it's still mowed, there's a disc golf course out there, but there's a lot of questions about what direction that should go.
okay, I seem to remember the water line discussion, but
Right.
not
Yeah, that was-
associated,
yeah.
okay.
That goes
Okay.
from the county, yeah. that's
Okay,
right.
okay, thank you.
So, yeah, that's the lake situation.
Thank you for that, yeah.
I think with the library, we're going through this new budget process that thankfully you two have to drive the bus on and learn about and tell us. So, they made their recommendation and that's what we're going with, and still maybe in the future, trying to get the library to where they need to be financially to give raises to some of their staff.
Okay. Ryan, so help me, what should I be putting here for that?
I think continue to,
I think what I,
For the library operation.
well, just figure out where the library sits in the city's priority list on quality of life. Because if it's high, then you're gonna do everything you just said. If it's not, then it's like, here's what you get, do the best you can with it. So to me, it's where the prioritization of that entity is quality of life. How much does the city wanna try to support that?
So right now, it's not a city department.
But their budget runs through our budget.
Their mills pass through the city budget and then.
They're operated by their own board.
Right, okay,
And we have a cap on it, we could remove, there's a whole bunch of things the city could do.
okay, but what do we want to do and for what purpose?
And we had a work session with.
So,
Okay.
I think 2 to 5 years, I think we just want to clearly kind of figure out
Yeah.
how important that is.
Right.
And, you know, to Brian's point, help them get there if we think they need to be in a different spot.
Should this say library operations or just, I mean, maybe, continue to support library operations, should say continue to evaluate? I'm wordsmithing, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
I'd say, I mean, 2 to 5 years, we want to complete all the sidewalks that we've been
Mhm.
given grants for.
I would say that's for our infrastructure, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that and the trail, like, kind of like, well, like, what do we like, the infrastructure or the economic development, trail?
Yes and yes.
Yeah.
So at the risk of being controversial here, but I think in the next 2 to 5 years, you know, I think what we learned through this whole community center process is there is a difference between a community center and a rec center.
Right.
So I think I would like to see, you know, try to figure out if there's an appetite for a rec center in the next 2 to 5 years. Evaluate that.
Evaluate a long-term plan.
Help
for a
evaluate that. Yes, I mean, it just, I think we would get some feedback from the community on that, one way or the other.
Yeah, it needs to be on there.
I put versus, should I put and or?
Don't put verses.
No.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know, that's why I put and or.
I'd probably just take off the community center side.
I think it's separate. I mean, to me, it's a guy with the need for a rec center.
versus rec center.
It just pertains to the rec center, basically.
Yeah, it's
Not
not,
the
doesn't
Yeah.
pertain to
community
the
center.
community
It's
center.
not an
You
either
just
or.
scratch
I
that
mean,
off.
they're separate decisions.
Yeah,
I
they're
think is what we learned.
I didn't mean to put that there.
Well, in our discussion, when you were here last time, we talked about formalizing the relationship with the Recreation Commission. I'm not sure what we mean by formalizing, but I think it falls into that. It's understanding what the goals are of them in the city.
Well, I think it also, as I recall, it was about, it was surrounding the community center and how they operate.
It was the
Yeah,
operator.
What is the
Yeah.
operator?
Yeah.
It was
Right.
like, yeah.
Right. It was evaluating to see if the community, the rec's goals, could overlap with ours,
Right.
with the community center.
Right.
But they would, yeah, find a way to operate.
We had, what, 2 meetings with the Rec Commission, 2 sessions?
I think that's still a goal.
Those
And the-
discussions are
and the
ongoing.
Discussions
Just
continue.
Unless we.
Or have started.
Yep.
Again, so.
I don't think she remembered how painful it was when she showed up.
I think she's probably used to
She
it.
had it in her eyes. Oh, yeah.
I was just glad you guys showed up. I thought, well, they're not coming.
I'm waiting for you down at the other place.
Yeah. No, I mean, so first of all, I will say that I am glad that there were continued discussions after I left. I mean, that's how it should be, you know, just to go through a day and then not use the document and things do change, right? So priorities change and circumstances change. So no, I think that's great. And I do appreciate that you have said that you wanted to get the community involved. So can we turn to that discussion now? Is that okay? So also, I guess I would like to start with and make sure that I'm hearing this accurately. So it's appropriate to start kind of from a point of letting them know where the governing body has been, but also to make it clear that kind of, I don't know if everything's on the tables, right? But you really want to hear from them. I mean, So it's
But they're
not,
not limited to where.
right, to where you are. Okay, that's great. Okay, I'm just gonna, sorry that you two guys are having to turn around all the time.
No, it's fine. We chose to sit here.
So the question is, and Glenn, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to really have a definition of what a sturdy easel looks like.
It's the best we got.
So,
Sturdy easel looks like the one on top of the bookshelf that you said.
Oh.
So as you think about, and we started some of this discussion earlier. As you think about October 28th, what do you want to know from your residents? Actually, from your citizens, right? People who are invested in your community. So what do you want to know?
I think you start from the top bottom. I think, present the mission statement that we've come up to this point. Does this align with the philosophy that you see? Is this the direction you want to see Walton go? That seems right to me.
It's okay. Or if I put it this way, what's their vision for Walton City?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and what's their priorities for it, all that stuff
Yeah.
under that.
I mean, is it that basic, or are there more? Again, we're not going to sit there and go through each of the
Yeah, we
each of
did
the
weeds
possibilities.
on all of it, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think,
Yeah.
This is a strategic plan. We need an overarching direction.
Right.
And then we can connect the dots and get there. The more guidance they can give. the
I almost
better.
think it is
They'll
that
have a
basic. I
little
almost
time.
think you
Right.
almost wanted that basic
Yeah.
to leave it open.
It is, but just have some
That's the thought
priorities.
I'm having.
So Mayor and Susan?
Well, I was just saying that I almost think it, for October 28th, it's not the final meeting. I almost think it is that basic. Am I not?
It's pretty bright. Yeah, we will get more narrow for the second one. So
Yeah.
it is, yeah. And we'll test what we heard on the November 9th, what we heard on the 28th. Is that where you were going to?
Yeah, I think we should start pretty broad, so
Yeah.
we get a full scope. I feel like if, we just throw out certain objectives, everybody's gonna focus on that and we're gonna miss something that, it's not even
Right.
on our radar.
Right.
I guess,
Could,
so I
no,
guess-
I mean, we could, because we could, I guess I don't want to, ignore the work that you guys have already done. Because I think it says something that you've already come together and that you've really been thinking about the future of the community, while at the same time wanting to make sure you get their input. So where I was going, I saw the thought bubble up here, like maybe they should just start from the very beginning, No, I think it's important for them to know.
it's a lot easier reverse engineering something than, coming up with, the thought process.
Yeah,
But it might limit their view if you say, this is what we've thought of.
Right.
But hard to say. I think in a short period of time, you'll have a hard time getting people to understand maybe, what a priority looks like in these elements and how you would actually capture that.
But would you bring in like where the council's vision and everything was on that second meeting? So get the raw data at the first meeting, then when the second group comes in, you bring in the council's.
no, because that pretty much says, that's great that you said that, here's kind of what we thought.
Right.
So, but I think it'd be more important to say, hey, here's where we started.
Okay.
And we're happy, and now we're this is a new process, and
Mhm.
we're working together with you all on this.
So I'm just trying to think of, what some responses might look like, and I can see someone saying, I want to make our power more highly available, less downtime as a priority. So Then how do we fit that into what we've done? I mean, where does that then, so you take that and then you try to map it into something that would then
So
support
it's
that?
a priority if everybody votes on it at the meeting, right?
That's
So,
that one person's
right.
priority, right?
Well, if it's one person's
Or
priority,
it comes out of the group.
So it
Well, it comes out of the group.
but it comes out of the group, like it comes out of a group of 6 or 8 people, but it's then it's sent to the theme team, and like if you have 10 tables of 6 or 8 people, and everybody's saying, oh God, you know? I mean, then it becomes like, oh, this looks like it really has some energy around it. And so the theme team will be made up of staff that I bring, like little limited staff, and also then city staff too, because we don't know the community. So we might say, it looks like this is what they're talking about, but oh, no, Patty, it's what this is. So I guess another way to say this is, you know, what are the objectives? Are these the objectives? You know, what's their vision and what are their preliminary, like what does it look like their preliminary priorities are? Because then there will be refinement between that first and second meeting where we go back and test things.
I think we're gonna get some, I think we're gonna get more higher level priorities. Like, I want this place to be affordable. We're gonna get those types of things that we're gonna have to translate.
Sure.
And maybe that's part of
Yes.
the workshop is, what do you mean by
Yes.
that? You know, oh, my electric rate, so you have to distill it down into something that,
So like if we saw, what if we did see like the electric rate and we saw my water rates went up too, and I can't find a house, you know, and so that's where it's incumbent upon the theme team to go, okay, well, so is this a financial situation? Is it an economic development issue? You know, and then that's how we present it back. But again, everything is captured in the report, so you'd be able to see, like, I'm very specific. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to envision, but it's pretty cool to see all those people in a room together and see that kind of stuff in real time.
I'm okay leaving it that wide open. And it just, I mean, we should have where we're at in the strategic plan on the website anyway. I mean, ideally that process would be out there right now. So getting something out there, whether they want to use that or not, I don't know that we hand it to them. But if they want to go look at it, they can.
But I mean, I think you put it on the website, and I do think we start to say, hey, this is the work that's been done. These are the discussions the governing body has already had. Here's some where progress has been made, because
Yeah, that's a good way to approach it.
you know.
You talk about the forward areas,
Right.
and here the progress has been made, but then it's like, now we want to know what you think.
Right, what do you think, like, what we've done and what we need to be doing?
Exactly. I think we'll get something useful out of that.
I hope so, because otherwise, we'll be really good. Anything else that we need to talk about or any questions about?
Well,
sit
if
down.
we do, we can email you, right?
Yes, you may.
Pop up in the middle of the night.
I'm responsive, but not middle of the night
I wouldn't
responsive.
send it there. I might think of it then.
Yeah, I understand. I don't have anything else to go on there.
Well, thank you all. Good session.
Good session.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
And you're just gonna work with Glenn and Lynn to start promoting
The 28th, yeah.
So, yeah, so we'll talk, like I said, Tuesday will be our first discussion, so talk about, how to put the agenda together, who needs to be involved, how to get it out there. And so we're already in the middle of September, but I think that's plenty of time to start getting the word out.
Yeah, I think so.
Our
Right, Lynn?
communication director will blast it.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll get it.
Lynn's got
We'll
this.
get
I know,
every,
yeah.
don't worry about that.
Communication channel available